The soft glow of the moon illuminated the tiny, cluttered room where Rita knelt by her bedside. Clutching a small, well-worn icon in her trembling hands, her whispered prayer echoed with desperation. Almighty Lord, don't abandon Mom. Please help us find money for her treatment. Let her see again, to enjoy the flowers she loves so much, to paint again. Don't let her sink into darkness. Her voice cracked, and tears spilled onto her cheeks. She kissed the icon and placed it carefully on the nightstand. Exhaustion washed over her as she climbed into bed. Sleep came swiftly, bringing a dream that felt like a divine sign. In her dream, she stood atop a hill, dressed in pure white, barefoot, and singing with all her heart. A crowd gathered below, clapping, cheering, throwing flowers. But amidst their joy, Rita's gaze found her mother. She was standing far away, her eyes filled with radiant light, no longer blind, no longer struggling. Rita sang louder, her voice soaring higher, a beacon of hope in the dreamscape. Then, suddenly, the vision dissolved into the harsh buzz of her alarm clock. Rita sat up in bed, the dream's warmth still lingering. "I'll sing," she whispered to herself, clutching her chest. "If my voice can move strangers in a dream, maybe it can move them in real life. I'll sing in the square and earn money for Mom's treatment. I have to." Her decision was unwavering. The world had given her nothing, but she would fight to take back everything for her mother. Milena was all she had left, a gentle, broken woman who had once been vibrant and full of life, but was now losing her sight to a cruel illness. Rita was just 15, but her resolve was that of someone who had lived through decades of hardship. The sun was barely up when Rita began preparing for her day. She packed her school bag, slipped on her favorite sundress, a faded but beloved hand-me-down, and tucked an old cookie tin into her bag. The tin was a relic from better times, now repurposed to collect coins. It wasn't much, but it was a symbol of hope. At school, Rita found it impossible to focus. Her Spanish teacher scolded her for daydreaming. "Rita, are you even listening?" "I'm sorry," Rita mumbled, her cheeks flushing. "My head's been hurting." Her teacher's sharp gaze softened. "Maybe you should see a doctor." Rita shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Her mind raced with the plan for the evening, singing in the square near the shopping center. Could she even do it? Would anyone stop to listen? The thought of standing in front of strangers filled her with dread, but her mother's face, tired and frail, was a constant reminder that fear was not an option. When Rita returned home that afternoon, her mother was peeling potatoes in their tiny kitchen. "Hi, sunshine," Milena greeted with a tired smile. "Hi, Mom." Rita kissed her mother on the cheek. "How are your eyes today?" Milena sighed. "The same, sweetheart. Don't worry about me." But how could Rita not worry? Every day, her mother's vision grew worse. The doctors had said that treatment was possible, but it was outrageously expensive. Rita forced a smile. "Don't worry, Mom. Everything will be fine soon. I promise." Later that evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Rita stood in the square, her heart pounding. The shopping center loomed nearby, its lights flickering to life. She set the cookie tin on the ground and clutched her hands tightly, trying to steady her nerves. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "For Mom." Her first notes were shaky, barely audible, but she pressed on. Her voice grew stronger, and soon she lost herself in the music. People began to stop and listen. Some smiled, others whispered to each other. Rita closed her eyes and poured her soul into the melody, imagining her mother's sight returning with every note. But just as her confidence swelled, a gruff voice interrupted her. "What's going on here?" A security guard loomed over her, his uniform crisp but his eyes cold. "This isn't a concert hall. Move along." "I'm not doing anything wrong," Rita said, her voice trembling. "I just need money for my mother's treatment." The guard sneered. "Ask your father for money, not strangers." His words cut deep, but Rita stood her ground. "I don't have a father," she replied quietly. "Not my problem." He pointed to her tin. "Pack it up, or I'll call the police." The small crowd dispersed as quickly as it had gathered. Rita bit her lip, fighting tears as she picked up her empty tin. She walked aimlessly, her heart heavy with failure. When she reached the riverbank, she saw a quiet platform under a large tree. It was nearly deserted, the perfect place to sing without interruption. Rita sang again, her voice echoing over the water. Couples strolling nearby stopped to listen. A few even tossed coins into her tin. It wasn't much, but it was something. For the first time, hope flickered in her heart. That night, Rita counted her earnings, barely enough for a loaf of bread, but she refused to give up. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself. "Tomorrow, I'll try again." The next day, the sky was heavy with grey clouds, threatening rain. Rita stood at the same riverside platform, clutching her cookie tin. Her voice carried across the water, raw and poignant, as if pleading with the world itself. Her last note lingered in the air when she bent to pick up her tin. A shadow fell over her, startling her. Rita straightened up to see a tall man in an expensive business suit. His sharp features softened as he spoke. "You have the voice of an angel," he said, his tone warm but firm. Rita blinked, unsure how to respond. "Thank you," she mumbled, clutching the tin closer to her chest. "You shouldn't be here," the man continued. "A voice like yours deserves to be heard across the world, not on a street corner." Rita bit her lip. "I'm not singing for fame. I just need money. For my mother's treatment." The man's brow furrowed. "Treatment? Is she unwell?" "She's losing her eyesight," Rita explained, her voice faltering. "And we can't afford the surgery. I thought—" Her words caught in her throat. "I thought maybe this would help." For a moment the man said nothing. Then he extended his hand. "My name is Alberto. I own a bar in town. If you're willing to sing there, I'll pay you enough to start saving for your mother's treatment." Rita hesitated. Singing in a bar. She barely had the courage to sing in public. But the memory of her mother's weary eyes spurred her on. "You're serious?" she asked, hope flickering in her chest. "Absolutely. I'll make sure your mother gets the care she needs. My uncle is a renowned microsurgeon in the capital. He owes me a favor." Rita's eyes widened. "You'd help us?" Alberto smiled. "On one condition. You sing for me now, just one more song." Nervous but determined, Rita sang a soulful tune, her voice weaving a tapestry of emotion. Alberto listened, spellbound. "Perfect," he said when she finished. "Be at the bar tomorrow night. We'll discuss everything then." He handed her a crisp bill. "For now, buy something nice for your mother." Rita stared at the money, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching it tightly. "Don't thank me yet, Nightingale," Alberto said, already walking away. "The real work starts tomorrow." The bar, Insight, was unlike anything Rita had imagined. Its tiled roof reminded her of a storybook house, and its warm, golden lights spilled onto the cobblestone street. Yet, as she stepped inside, her heart pounded. The air was thick with the hum of conversation, clinking glasses, and a faint haze of cigarette smoke. "Rita!" Alberto greeted her at the door. "Come, let me introduce you to someone." A woman with sharp eyes and a welcoming smile approached. "This is Lorna," Alberto explained. "She'll help you get ready." Lorna led Rita backstage, where a simple but elegant dress awaited her. "You'll wear this," Lorna said, holding up a mask, "and this will hide your identity. It's for your safety, and a little mystery doesn't hurt." Rita hesitated, running her fingers over the sequins of the mask. "Do you think people will like me?" "Like you?" Lorna laughed softly. "They'll love you. Now let's get started." When Rita stepped onto the small stage, the room fell silent. Under the spotlight, she felt exposed, vulnerable. But then she closed her eyes and sang. Her voice, filled with yearning and hope, cascaded over the crowd like a wave. The audience was enraptured. Some whispered to each other, others wiped away tears. When she finished her first song, the room erupted in applause. "Encore!" someone shouted. Rita glanced at Alberto, who nodded. Taking a deep breath, she began another song, one her mother used to hum while cooking. Each note felt like a tribute to the woman she loved most. By the end of the night, Rita was exhausted, but exhilarated. Alberto approached her, clapping his hands. "You were incredible, Nightingale. You'll bring this place back to life." He handed her an envelope. "Your first payment. There's more where that came from." Rita opened it, her breath hitching at the sight of the crisp bills. It was more money than she'd ever held in her life. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank me by coming back tomorrow," Alberto said. "And don't forget, this is just the beginning." Over the next few weeks, Rita's life transformed. She sang at Insight every Friday and Saturday, her performances drawing larger crowds each time. The money she earned brought her closer to her goal, and Alberto made good on his promise to connect her mother with his uncle. But not everyone was happy about Rita's success. Bianca, a former singer at Insight, watched from the shadows, seething. She had been the bar's star until Rita came along. Her mother, Candida, fueled the flames of her jealousy. "That girl stole your place," Candida hissed one evening, "and Alberto's throwing you away like trash." "I'll get it back," Bianca snapped. "Just wait." Unbeknownst to Rita, Bianca and her mother were plotting. Rita's performances at Insight became the talk of the town. The crowds grew larger each night, and the bar thrived under the magic of her voice. Yet, as her star rose, the shadows around her deepened. It was late one Friday evening when Rita left the bar. Her earnings tucked safely in her pocket, she walked along the quiet, lamp-lit streets. Alberto usually sent someone to escort her home, but tonight he had been too preoccupied to arrange it. Rita assured herself she'd be fine. It wasn't far. "Excuse me, dear," a soft voice called from the curb. A middle-aged woman stood by a battered car, her expression flustered. "My phone slipped under the seat and I can't reach it. Could you help?" Rita hesitated but stepped closer. "Of course," she said, leaning into the car to check beneath the seat. Before she could react, something hard struck the back of her head. The world spun into darkness. When Rita awoke, her wrists were bound, and tape sealed her mouth. The car rattled down a desolate road, the trees outside looming like jagged shadows. Panic seized her chest. Who was this woman? Why had she been taken? The woman glanced back, her face twisted in malice. "You think you're special, don't you?" she hissed. "Stealing the spotlight from my Bianca. Alberto threw her away because of you." Rita's heart raced. This was Bianca's mother, Candida. The woman's jealous, venomous glare sent chills down her spine. The car veered onto a narrow forest trail, its tires crunching against gravel. "Let's see how special you are when no one can find you," Candida muttered. Rita fought against her restraints, her muffled cries drowned by the sound of the engine. Tears streamed down her face. She thought of her mother. What would happen to her if Rita never returned? The car screeched to a halt in a remote clearing. Candida yanked Rita out, dragging her into the woods. "Move!" she barked, shoving Rita forward. Branches scratched Rita's arms as they trudged deeper into the forest. Her mind raced. Stay calm. Look for a way out. But the darkness was suffocating, and her fear was paralyzing. Suddenly, a low growl broke through the night. Candida froze, her grip on Rita tightening. The sound grew louder, closer. "Wolves!" Candida whispered, her bravado faltering. The growling turned into barking as a large St. Bernard burst through the underbrush. Behind it, a man with a flashlight appeared. His rugged features were illuminated by the beam, his expression a mix of shock and anger. "Sam, heel!" the man commanded the dog before turning to Candida. "What the hell is going on here?" "She's none of your business," Candida snapped. The man's eyes narrowed. "She's bound and gagged. That makes it my business." He stepped forward, his imposing frame making Candida retreat. The man untied Rita's wrists and removed the tape from her mouth. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice gentle now. Rita nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She kidnapped me." The man turned to Candida. "Leave. Now. Before I call the police." Candida glared at him but didn't argue. She fled into the woods, her footsteps fading into the distance. "Come on," the man said, placing a comforting hand on Rita's shoulder. "Let's get you out of here." The man led Rita to a small cabin nestled in the woods. Inside, a warm light glowed from an oil lamp, and the air smelled faintly of honey and herbs. "Sit," he said, pointing to a wooden chair. "I'll make you some tea." Rita's hands trembled as she held the steaming cup. "Thank you," she murmured. "If you hadn't come—" "I'm glad I did," the man replied, sitting across from her. "My name's Adam, by the way." "Rita," she said, her voice still shaky. Adam's eyes softened. "What were you doing out here?" I sing at a bar in town. I was walking home when that woman—" Her voice broke and she looked away. Adam nodded, his expression serious. "You're brave, but you shouldn't have to deal with something like this." For a moment they sat in silence. Then Adam leaned forward, studying her face. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Someone I knew a long time ago." Rita frowned. "Who?" "A woman named Millionaire," Adam said, his voice tinged with sadness. "We were close, but she disappeared. I never knew why." Rita's heart skipped a beat. "Millionaire is my mother." Adam's eyes widened. "Your mother?" Rita nodded. "She never talks about the past, but I know she's been through a lot." Adam ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts racing. "I loved her," he said finally. "I still do. But something happened, and she left without a word." Rita's mind swirled with questions, but one thing was clear. This man wasn't a stranger. He was a missing piece of her mother's past. The next morning, Adam drove Rita home. Before she left, he handed her a card. "Call me if you ever need help," he said. At home, Rita hugged her mother tightly. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." Millionaire looked at her daughter, concern flickering in her tired eyes. "What is it?" Rita hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I met someone who knows you. His name is Adam." Millenaire's face paled. "Adam?" Rita nodded. "He told me he loved you. He never understood why you left." Tears welled in Millenaire's eyes. "I had my reasons," she whispered. "But that's a story for another time." "Mom," Rita said gently, "maybe it's time to tell it." That evening, as the soft glow of their modest kitchen light illuminated the room, Rita sat across from her mother. The tension in the air was palpable. Millionaire stared into her cup of tea, her hands trembling slightly. "Mom," Rita began cautiously, "I think it's time I knew the truth. About Adam. About why you left him." Millenaire's eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and hesitation. "It's not as simple as you think, Riri," she said, using the nickname she hadn't called Rita in years. "Then tell me," Rita urged gently. "I deserve to know." Millionaire took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began. "When I met Adam, he was everything to me. Kind, supportive, and full of dreams. But life wasn't kind to us. I found out I was pregnant with you, and before I could tell him, I saw something that shattered me." Rita's heart raced. "What did you see?" Millionaire hesitated, as though reliving the pain of that moment. "I saw him with another woman. She was holding a baby, and they looked so happy together. I thought he had a family, that I was just a foolish girl who had been living a lie. I couldn't face him after that. So I left." "But Mom," Rita said, her voice breaking, "what if it was a misunderstanding? Adam told me he searched for you everywhere. He never stopped loving you." Millenaire's eyes widened in shock. "He said that?" Rita nodded, her voice filled with urgency. "Yes, Mom, and I believe him. You need to see him. You both deserve closure at the very least." For a long moment Millionaire was silent, tears streaming down her face. Finally she whispered, "All right. I'll see him. But I'm afraid, Riri. Afraid of what he might say. or not say. Rita reached across the table, holding her mother's hand. "You don't have to be afraid, Mom. I'll be with you." The next day, Rita called Adam. "She's ready," she told him. Adam's voice was steady, but she could hear the emotion behind his words. "Thank you, Rita. Tell me where and when." They decided to meet at a quiet cafe near the river. The place was almost empty when Rita and Milena arrived. Milena fidgeted nervously, her hands clutching her scarf as if it were her lifeline. When Adam walked in, he froze the moment he saw her. Milena turned, their eyes meeting for the first time in over a decade. The air between them was electric with unspoken words and buried emotions. "Milena," Adam said, his voice breaking slightly. "Adam," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Adam stepped forward and took her hands in his. "You disappeared," he said, his voice filled with both hurt and relief. "I searched everywhere. Why didn't you come to me?" Milena's voice trembled as she replied. "I thought you had a family. I saw you with a woman and a baby, and I thought—" She trailed off, unable to continue. Adam's expression shifted from confusion to realization. "You mean my sister-in-law and nephew?" "Milena, that wasn't my family. My brother had passed away and I was helping them. I had no one else but you." Milena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Adam, I was so wrong. I'm so sorry." Adam shook his head, his grip on her hands tightening. "No, Milena. I should have found a way to make you stay. I should have told you how much I loved you. But it doesn't matter now. You're here, and that's all that matters." Tears streamed down Milena's cheeks. "I never stopped loving you, Adam. Not for a single day." "And I've loved you every moment since you left," Adam replied. Rita watched the exchange, her heart swelling with emotion. This was the reunion she had dreamed of, not just for herself, but for her mother, who had suffered so much in silence. From that day forward, everything began to change. Adam moved closer to Rita and Milena, determined to support them. With his help, Milena's treatment progressed faster than expected. Her vision slowly returned, and with it, a spark of joy that Rita hadn't seen in years. As for Rita, she continued singing at Insight, but now with a new sense of purpose. Her voice wasn't just a way to earn money, it was a gift she could share with the world. Alberto, ever the entrepreneur, began promoting her performances beyond the bar, and soon offers started pouring in. One evening, as the family sat together by the riverbank, Adam turned to Rita. "You know, your voice is more than just beautiful. It's a legacy. You inherited it from your mother." Milena smiled, her hand resting on Rita's. "And one day, the world will know your name, my little nightingale." Rita laughed, her heart light for the first time in years. "Maybe. But for now, I just want to sing for the two of you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Rita began to sing, her voice carrying across the water like a lullaby. Adam and Milena listened, their hands entwined, finally at peace. Her journey from a desperate girl singing on the streets to save her mother to finding a family and a future is nothing short of extraordinary. This story reminds us of the power of love and perseverance. No matter how dark life seems, there's always a glimmer of light if we dare to chase it. What do you think about Rita's journey? If you were in her position, would you have shown the same courage and determination? How would you react to finding a missing piece of your family after so many years? These are questions that make us reflect on our own lives and relationships. If you were to rate this story, how many points would you give it? Let us know in the comments below. Your feedback helps us improve and bring you even better content. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching, and may you have a wonderful and lucky day ahead. See you in the next story.